sir, we have a problem sikit kan. Banyak orang, they drive very fast and then accident banyak-banyak lah. Jadi prevention kan is better than cure. Instead of if making the car better kan, how about we run campaign to make Malaysians scared to drive Protons very fast on the highway. Dan nama campaign kita kan best kan lah. Nama campaign nak mati ke? There is one car brand that gets Malaysians more emotional over than any other car brand. A name that carries so much baggage, so much frustration, and stories that people make documentaries over in 30 years' time.
The percussively impotent window mechanisms, humorously treacherous door handles that divorce themselves from the car after a few years, frighteningly effective air conditioning systems.
How do you get a Malaysian to talk about cars? Easy. Just ask them what they think of Proton. They'll have a story to tell. Yet, just hearing the name Proton mentioned on an Australian YouTube show or an obscure episode of Top Gear, it's exciting, isn't it? It's a reminder that somebody out there recognizes that we exist in the car world.
When you think about it, the Proton story comes down to one contentious word: protectionism. It stirs the emotions of any Malaysian who understands it. And the local car industry has been influenced by it until this very day, perhaps more than some of us are aware of.
But this isn't a rant of disappointment, trade barriers, or even bad cars. What are Protons like anyway? Are there any more to Protons than their prices? What are they like to drive? The Persona promised a lot before it reached the Malaysian public. Pre-launch videos in 2007 showed a silhouette without the car's face or other details. Bookings were already open and it was called Our Pride and Joy. I was 11 in 2007 and I had my expectations quite high for the new car. I was disappointed that the Pride and Joy was basically a longer Gen 2. But they did boast that they worked hard on developing an all-new car with new levels of safety and refinement and all. So after it was launched, my granddad ordered a mid-spec Persona with a manual, and it arrived later that year. Adjusting the mirrors is more infuriating than being put on hold while calling customer service to report issues with your home internet. You press left and it moves diagonally upwards, or not at all. And signaling to change lanes can sometimes accidentally turn the headlights on or off. The Persona is actually designed as a B-segment car, competing with cars like the Vios and City. Yes, it costs a fraction of those, wonder why, but size and performance-wise, that's what it's aiming to be. Despite a Japanese B-segment car being out of the reach of most Persona buyers, the B-segment buyer demands more than, say, someone buying a Saga. A Saga driver doesn't necessarily fall in the income bracket you think they're in. A Saga driver might be a rich guy's kid or a third car to take the family out for dinner so you don't get judged when getting out of your Audi. Buying a new Persona, however, might be a more meaningful purchase. Persona owners might take a bit better care of their car or keep it a bit longer. Sort of. To some, a new Persona is one of life's little luxuries.
One thing to be remarked about the Persona is that it's struggling to shrug off the build quality flu that the assembly line's water seems to be carrying. It's trying. The dashboard doesn't rattle when you stop at a stoplight. At speeds out to 100 kilometers, sound insulation is averagely satisfying, and the ride quality is remarkable. Lotus-tuned suspension takes the edge off larger bumps and holes. More on that later. Not quite as tight and silent as closing the cap on a thermos. The level of quality the Persona has is what you get when you take a Wira and simply ask, what can we do to make this better? Just try to smooth out the rough edges and make it newer and nicer. By the time you do that though, times have changed, and after a few years, you've lost the chemistry with your new car, like distant husbands and wives after not spending enough time together as the kids grow up. Now the kids have moved on, and you're just distant, confused. So you deduce that Protons are good new cars, but they don't last. It still has those squeaky and unsettling sounds and judders when starting the engine and setting off in first gear, but up to highway speeds, it's not unpleasant.
Alright.
Let's go. Back to the Lotus bit. People are well aware that Proton owns Lotus blah blah blah, but how good can a 1.6 economy thing from 2007 really be to drive? Deducing that a Persona drives well because Proton owns Lotus is like deducing that Tesco Super Value coffee will be good coffee because of reasons. Like listening to your older brother when he tells you to put your head in a turkey and run into the wall because what could possibly go wrong? Like a diaper company claiming it'll suck the milk right out of the bottle. Unlikely promises then.
Except it's not. The gear change is crisp. Yeah, it's notchy, but there isn't any slack and you know what gear you're in. Maybe someone spent some extra time making it work like that. Maybe not. Take a Persona with a manual to your favorite curvy road. Take the time to get used to those initially clunky controls. And then you might reach a point that shakes up your world. A moment when you, as a driver, get it. When you sort of create a new category of car in your mind, that a good driving car doesn't get its value from NVH quality, or how much money it costs, or even horsepower. You discover that the Persona is fluid. Fluidity is when you drive down the road and it feels good. This is about how a bump in the middle of the fast bend doesn't upset your line. And you know how big that bump was through the steering wheel, which also tells you that the front wheels are wiggling a bit, right as you make those tiny corrections in the heat of the bend. That's feedback you'll never get from a new Honda with electric power steering, because of fuel efficiency reasons and NVH quality that Persona drivers probably wish they had more of. The steering and front wheels flow around a corner undramatically linear. That sense of swinging that you get used to in an MPV just doesn't reach you as a driver.
Wow. And that's why Personas are fun. It's fun. Oh god, I forgot how fun a manual car was.
There's some simple enjoyment in this car, not to mention that hole in the exhaust that sounds like this. Let's recognize the underrated platform that is the Persona. It takes you back to a very simple form of driving pleasure. Perhaps an interesting platform for your next race car project thing, or an ironic car enthusiast cheap thrills thing. It's really not a bad idea.
Driving the Persona is like that dog that pees on your clothes and rips up your furniture. It's not a good dog, but it's a fun dog. But darn it, when that dog looks at you, you tell him he's a good dog.
1, 2,